Tonight, a former St. Tammany Parish deputy is blowing the whistle and pulling back the curtain. He paints a picture of a good old boys club with what he claims was a culture of fear and retaliation as former Sheriff Randy Smith left the agency after an unprovoked Steakhouse fight. WDSU Investigates exposes new details that go beyond the criminal case. Investigator Aubrey Killian sat down exclusively with the sheriff's office and the former deputy.
When it comes to ex-St. Tammany Sheriff,
they had a disturbance when somebody was attacked.
Randy Smith.
Called in by sheriff's office, who is still en route.
For ex-deputy,
There was a disturbance with an assault at that location.
Chris Washington.
Leadership that gets to just do whatever they want, and it's almost I dare you to say something.
Multiple words come to mind.
If you don't fall into the good old boy system, you're disposable.
During his time there, he was a Medal of Valor recipient.
Myself and another deputy put our literal lives at risk trying to pull somebody out from a burning vehicle.
Law enforcement wants his life, but he says that changed under former Sheriff Randy Smith. WDSU Investigates called Smith's attorneys for an interview. They would not agree to one. Here's Smith in 2019.
I'm feeling very victorious.
2019 is when Washington says he started his career. He says he left in 2021.
I saw behind the curtain and I left.
Washington claims that there were conversations about what he said could happen if deputies had to pull Smith over.
If you make it up to the window, just walk away. Just walk away. There's nothing you can do about it.
We're not deceitful, devious, or retaliatory people.
Current Chief Deputy Greg Cox confirmed Washington was an employee and says his concerns weren't in his exit interview. And when it comes to that claim about what apparently could happen if he pulled the sheriff over,
had it ever been spoken about or discussed between members, employees?
May have, but not that I'm aware of. And I can see people talking about what would you do if you pulled over any sheriff.
Was anything ever documented within the sheriff's office about any red flags or complaints filed regarding the sheriff?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
So over the course of his career,
there might be. I mean, I'm not saying anything absolute, but I can check and see.
Deputy Cox admits Smith's guilty plea and him leaving the office had impact.
Were there any issues about the culture under his leadership?
I'm sure there were some, yeah. I would guarantee you there were some. Since that incident and he left, things have definitely gotten a lot better. People feel a little more comfortable now.
Cox and the current interim sheriff of St. Tammany Parish, Brett Ibert, are making it clear they're here to improve the sheriff's office.
There needs to be a culture change, especially a minimum in perception. Stability, just let them know, and that open door policy, there's no politics.
The image of the office is on the line. Smith replaced disgraced ex-sheriff Jack Strain.
Jack, how are you feeling going into day 2?
Very good.
That's what Strain told me before he was convicted in 2021 of rape.
That's the part that genuinely sickens me, that the public puts anything a sheriff would do on them, because they do such a good job because of how Strain acted, how Randy Smith acted. It's a shame that happened because there's such good men and women here.
But questions still remain on Smith. Records uncovered by WDSU Investigates show the day of the attack on May 29th, Smith swiped into work. Cox says there was about a 10-year dispute between Smith and Bobby Cuvion. That decade-long dispute ending in a bloody Steakhouse brawl. Prosecutors say Cuvion suffered a concussion. Smith later pled guilty to felony second-degree battery and disturbing the peace by public intoxication.
How does something like that not get noticed?
I mean, patterns of him, I guess for whatever reason, being frustrated. Maybe it was due to drinking. Yeah, known he drinks. And
was it ever at a point where anybody in the office was concerned about it, getting to a point of consequences?
Not a consequence as much as, wishing he wouldn't. Just because don't do something and nothing bad can happen. That kind of thing. But he does what he wants to do. The anomaly there is that was the sheriff. The sheriff does not have a boss.
While Cox says deputies were never told to not respond to 911 calls.
Were any other employees there with them that night?
Not that I'm aware of, no. We're definitely not keeping a blind eye. If there's anything comes up, we're definitely going to deal with it. We definitely don't want that to ever happen again.
After the incident, court records allege that Gregory Siraj escorted Smith from the restaurant and drove him away and the sheriff's department vehicle.
Is it typical for that individual to be driving a sheriff's office car away?
Probably not. No, not typical. No. I mean, he's the sheriff. He can let him do what he wants.
Is the sheriff allowed to let
Absolutely.
someone drive a
Absolutely.
car?
I mean, he can because he's a sheriff. Yes, being the sheriff, he can let anybody he deems appropriate, and that's actually in the policy. That's just
Drive a sheriff's office car?
yes.
So I could drive a sheriff's office
If
car
you get
today?
authorization, from the sheriff, and he deems it appropriate, yes.
Would you support a policy change that has a specific list of instances where that would happen, maybe in an emergency?
Absolutely. I mean, I would support making that more clear of when and who. Yeah, sure.
While the department says this is an office that you can trust, Washington says he would consider returning to law enforcement if the right leadership is in place.
Slowly but surely, some change can happen.
I've told many people, ex-employees, I call them STPSO alumni, you're welcome here. This is your home. Like, come here, visit, come, don't feel like because somebody is, everybody's welcome. And it's the public too. We want everybody to be welcome here. We want to be transparent. We want everybody to feel welcome.
Aubrey Killian, WDSU Investigates.
WDSU Investigates requested the internal complaints for Sheriff Smith during his entire career with the sheriff's office. We are waiting on those records to be produced. Aubrey did reach out to Siraj. He told us no comment.